Hello everybody, my name is Zane Bloom. This is a little series I've been wanting to try for a little bit. This is Baseball Reference, which is my favorite website on the internet. You can pretty much do anything you want when it comes to learning about anything that has to do with baseball history. You can look at minor leaguers, major leaguers, Hall of Fame, records, lineups, box scores, literally anything that you can think of when it comes to the game of baseball. And the funny thing about it is, if you go into this search bar and you type in random, you can hit enter on that, and it will give you a random box score, player, or literally anything on the website. In the entire archive of anything, this is a way to just completely randomize your experience. So if you want to learn about something, then you can literally learn about anything at random. So what I want to do today is I want to do exactly that. I want to just walk through a random page on Baseball Reference and break it down. When I get a box score, I like to look at players. I like to look at dates. See maybe if there were some interesting players. I mean, just look at J.B. Shuck on the Los Angeles Angels right there. Andrew Romine, brother of Austin Romine. Like, you can find a whole bunch of stuff. Ooh, look at that, Jared Weaver, 7 innings pitched. Like, this is just random stuff that you can look at. And this game was from September 25th, 2013. So what I'm going to do is that's kind of the basis of what we're going to do. So we're going to do that again, and this will be our first official random learning curve, I guess you should say. Oh, so we got some older. Oh, is this opening day? We just pulled an opening day. Wow. April 3rd, 1989. It was a night game in Oakland against the Seattle Mariners. Look at that. We pulled an opening day. That is crazy. Or maybe it wasn't. Actually, it was not opening day. As you can see, there was only, 7 games that occurred on this day. So this was probably oh, okay, it's a Monday game. That's really interesting, actually. I wonder. Okay. So this was the first. This was Monday, April 3rd, and there were only 7 games. I'm just going to go to this game really quickly. I want to see if both of these two teams had. Yeah, it was their first game. Interesting. Okay. Well, maybe we'll dive into that in just a minute. But let's look at these box scores. Off the bat, I recognize a couple specific names. Harold Reynolds, MLB Network analyst. Obviously, Ken Griffey Jr. I believe Alvin Davis won a Rookie of the Year. Am I correct about that? He did win Rookie of the Year. Okay, so that is one little piece of information. Edgar Martinez playing third base in this game. Wow. He did not do a lot of that towards the end of his career, as you can see, so that's a nice little nugget. And then Omar Vizquel. Mark Langston, was he in... I believe he was in the Randy Johnson trade, actually. He was. Let's scroll down here. Let's see if we can find the transactions. This is another thing I like to see. Yes, this is what I'm looking for. Traded by the Mariners to the Expos for Randy Johnson. There you go. Okay. Now, is this the same year? I think it said 89, right? Is that what I'm looking for? Yes, that is right. Okay, so Mark Langston was the opening day pitcher for the Seattle Mariners in 1989, and he would eventually be traded for Randy Johnson. So that's a pretty cool little nugget there. Let's see if I recognize any of these athletics names. Dave Henderson. Do I recognize this name? I don't think I do. He had a pretty long playing career. Had a couple MVP type of seasons, not super high. One-time All-Star looks like. Mark McGwire, Dave Parker. Wow, the Cobra. Was this? Yeah, this was one of his last years in the league. Did not have the best of times in Oakland, but that's cool since he was just recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. That was a long time coming, and that honestly happened way later than it should have. Dave Parker, one of the best in Pirates history. He's in the Pirates Hall of Fame. I believe he was also in the Reds Hall of Fame. So one of the better players of the 20th century. Walt Weiss. This seems also like a recognizable name. Had a long career. He also won Rookie of the Year. Okay, that's another nugget. So we've got 2 Rookie of the Years at least in this. And then we got Griffey, who's a Hall of Famer. He did not win Rookie Year. Actually, ooh, wait. Is this? No way. Is this Griffey's first game? It is. Wow. We pulled Ken Griffey Jr.'s MLB debut. And he went 1 for 3 with a walk and a run scored. And it was a double. So his first major league hit was off of Dave Stewart, who was one of the better pitchers. We can look at him here real quick, too. So this was Dave Stewart towards the, I guess that's kind of the middle to late part of his career. This was probably his best year, it looks like. 3.32 ERA. I guess you could actually, no, 1990 was his best year. So he was an all-star this year. This is the only year he was an all-star. Wow, that's interesting. What was his career WAR? 26.5. Okay, so interesting. So when you look at Dave Stewart here, most of his success came in this little stretch with the A's, and this was when the A's were one of the best teams in baseball. He was kind of a journeyman. Wow, that's interesting. He was a journeyman for the first bit of his career. Never really found his stride. Kind of split some time here, which was his best year in '83. And then he made his way to Oakland. Interesting. I always think of the World Series that he pitched in. I'm trying to think. Actually, this would probably tell me which one that was. Maybe not. That's kind of a more general page. Dave Stewart was well known for being one of the most intimidating pitchers in baseball in the time that he was pitching, simply because he would just stare over his glove. You could only see his eyes when he was on the mound waiting for his sign. So that's a nice little nugget there. And then Dennis Eckersley, obviously a Hall of Famer. What part of this did... Okay, so this was towards the middle part of his career. Early on in his Oakland career, it looks like. This was the one year that he didn't make an All-Star game, it looks like. And yet he still finished 6th in Cy Young voting. How did he manage that? Okay, obviously, wow, look at that. .61 ERA in 1990. And then you look here in 92 when he won a Cy Young. One of the best relievers of all time. A 62.1 ERA, or 62.1 WAR over the course of his career. Hall of Famer. He was a starting pitcher for a good bit of his early on in his career. Yeah, you could see all here. Cleveland, Boston, a little bit with the Cubs, and then pretty much when he came to Oakland, then he became the closer. And look at those save numbers. 390 saves, led the league twice. That's pretty cool. Wow, Mark Langston, a 8-inning complete game with the loss. Only gave up 3 runs. Final score was 3-2. See if there's any... David Val. That sounds familiar. Maybe not. Maybe not. Had an okay career. Anytime you do make it to the major leagues, it's definitely worth noting. I want to see what Harold Reynolds says here. Yeah. I'll be honest, man. My dad kind of instilled this in me when I was a little bit younger, watching MLB Network pretty much daily. But my dad never really liked Harold Reynolds a lot. And I think part of his reasoning for that is because he was like, he wasn't that great of a player. 3-time Gold Glover, pretty good with the glove at second base, pretty much a second baseman only. He did steal a lot of bases, that is true. Led the league in triples this year. So let's see what he did this season in '89. No home runs, only had 21 career. 9 triples, 24 doubles. Wow, these doubles numbers are pretty impressive. If you can be a perennial 20 double guy, that's pretty good. Wow, more walks than strikeouts. That is impressive, I will say that. I do appreciate that. Was an all-star in 87 and 88. Looks like that was largely because of his speed. This was seemingly the age of speed back in the 80s, 90s-ish. That's kind of when the stolen base was one of those numbers that you kind of looked at in terms of valuing a player. Played good defense, like we saw, 3 Gold Gloves. But yeah, I mean, that's a good career. Almost 16 WAR over the course of, 12 years. Okay. Moved around a little bit. California, Angels, just a handful of games, about half a season in 94. I'm still shocked that we got Griffey's Major League debut. And that's the thing about this search bar, is that it's completely random. You can pull literally any page on Baseball Reference. So the fact that we got Griffey's Major League debut is wild. First overall pick by the Mariners 2 years prior to this, out of high school. Cincinnati guy. He ended up in Cincinnati towards the end of his career. So 89. So let's look at this. He was 19, amassed 3.3 WAR, had 16 homers, 127 games. OPS plus was above league average. Played solely center field this season. Let's see who he was behind in those Rookie of the Year. Greg Olson and Tom Gordon. I'm not even familiar with these names. Football player type names. So this guy was drafted the year before. He was the 4th overall pick. Looks like he kind of peaked early on in his career. Okay, so he had a 1.69 ERA as a closer, so 27 saves, maybe just a relief pitcher. I mean, yeah, that's pretty good. And it definitely did surpass Griffey in terms of just the sheer numbers. I mean, you look at these numbers, like if you take away the fact that this is Ken Griffey Jr. and you just look at this line right here, you'd say, okay, that was a decent rookie year. I mean, it wasn't anything like super special, but it was fine. 16 stolen bases, 16 home runs. That's fine. I mean, that's a good season. I mean, as a Pirates fan right now, I would take this season in a heartbeat right now. So, I mean, it makes sense that he was not the Rookie of the Year in 89. And the fact that he started right away, too, is crazy. I mean, he's the opening day starter for the Mariners at age 19, opening day center fielder. That's really cool. That's super cool. Saw 30 pitches in the game. And then you look and you see just this stretch of all-star games that he appeared in, just after that. I mean, his entire 20s, all the way from age 20 to age 30, he was in the all-star game. Made a couple in Cincinnati as well. Just a one-time MVP. I'm not sure if I really ever knew that, and it looks like, was that his best year? I mean, you could make an argument for really any 3 of these years, I feel like. He didn't play as many games in 96, but, I mean, he was doing just about the same. 97 was when he won his MVP, hit .304, slugged .646. Holy smokes. Intentionally walked 23 times. Led the league in RBIs, led the league in home runs. Did that for 3 straight years in the late 90s. Wow. That is something else. And to think also that he was not on the team when Ichiro was originally on the team. Actually, I want to see this. 2010, Ichiro was still on the team at this point, right? Yes, he was. So when he did make his return to the Mariners, they did play on the same team. So that's a couple of all-time greats back in Seattle, even though that's really Really didn't mean much, unfortunately, for them. They didn't really do a whole lot. Alvin Davis, I want to look at him one more time, too, because being a Rookie of the Year, and he won that in '84, so this was kind of towards the end of his career. Actually, this looks like, wow, Alvin Davis had a pretty solid career. OPS plus well above league average for his entire time with the Mariners. Never made an All-Star game past that rookie year. Now, when you look at this '84 season, this is a rookie year that you say, okay, that is a bona fide Rookie of the Year. 27 home runs, 34 doubles, OPS getting close to 900. Yeah, that's a pretty incredible year. This was his best year, it looks like. First baseman, a lot of power. Was he a lefty? No? Yeah, he was a lefty. Okay. Drafted 3 different times. 8th round out of high school. 6th round out of Arizona State in '81 by the Athletics. And then Arizona State again in the same round in '82. Wow. So he was drafted 3 times, twice in the same round out of college. So it looked like he bet on himself, but him betting on himself really didn't help or hurt his case. So that's an interesting little tidbit. All right, let's dive into these lesser-known players, because this is where the learning really takes place. This is where the deep baseball lore kind of comes into play. Darnell Coles, never heard of him. First-round pick in 1980 out of high school. Made his debut, looks like in '83. And, well, when you have a fairly long career, 14-year career with a negative WAR, that is something. Cincinnati in '92, he had a positive WAR. Colorado in his last year, 21 games, had very barely a positive WAR. So this looks like his best season with Detroit in '86. 20 home runs that year. Okay, I mean, that's going to do something for you. Wow. Darnell Coles. Played for a bunch of teams. Seattle with a primary team. Detroit, Pittsburgh, back to Seattle, back to Detroit. And then in a span of 3 years, Giants, Reds, Blue Jays, and then to the Cardinals, and then to the Rockies. Let's see how he was acquired in these places. Any trades? Anything that would stand out, maybe? Pirates. Trade. Jim Morrison. Not sure I recognize this name super well. I figured he was with the Pirates for a span of several years, it looks like. This is kind of the dark age of the Pirates. I wouldn't, well, not necessarily the dark age, but you know, they weren't really known for anything special in that time. Glenn Wilson. Tracy Jones. Yeah, no really, I guess, notable names in any of these trades. Played in Japan, that's interesting. That's where he went after the Rockies. So Darnell Coles, that's our first little deep dive. Jeffrey Leonard. Long time with the Giants, several years with Houston. Rookie of the Year, finished second place in '79. This was towards the end of his career. Okay, so, wow, he made an All-Star game this year. How did he manage that? Second All-Star game. He must have been red hot before well, he had 24 home runs. Kind of an all-or-nothing guy. League average at best. Let's see what his, see if I can find his defensive WAR. If that is going to show me, maybe not. I know on the mobile where to find D WAR, but I'm not seeing it here. No, I'm not seeing it. Oh, wait. Might be... No. Batting. Nope. D-War. There it is. Okay, he had a pretty awful defensive WAR, so it was not a very good defender. He played outfield. So, more so like a fairly above average season in 89. So, if you need a Mariners All-Star in your immaculate grid, that's another kind of reason why I wanted to do these types of videos, is because you can have some really deep cuts on the grid. So Jeffrey Leonard, that's a Seattle All-Star for you. Greg Briley, let's find out about this guy. Love the mustache. That's like a classic 80s, 90s player right there. Drafted 3 different times. Short career. This was towards the beginning of his career. So this was only his 14th career game. Played 13 games in 88. Looks like this was his best year. Had 13 home runs, 22 doubles. Yeah, this was his best offensive year for sure. Greg Briley. NC State Wolfpack. Okay, interesting there. Let's go back to Dave Valley. Drafted out of high school, 2nd round, a catcher. Long time here with the Mariners. So 89. Not a great year. Let's see what his defense looked like. Defense is about average, so nothing super special, it seems like. 94 games, so it looks like there was probably a platoon in Seattle at that time. And now we have a Hall of Famer, Edgar Martinez, known more as a DH through the end of his career. This was actually towards the beginning of his career, because we've got 27 games combined the previous 2 years, and he didn't really have a full season this year either. Was playing more third base at this point, and then, as you can kind of see here, he kind of started to shift towards that first base, and then eventually he was just a primary DH towards the end of his career. Really didn't break out in any department, actually. This was a pretty rough year for him in 65 games, but looks like 1990 was that very first full year that he got to play. Power numbers really didn't come around until he was 32. Wow. So he was a late bloomer. 29, 26, 28, 29, 24, 37 in 2023. So this span of several years, when he was making some all-star games, that was when Edgar Martinez really kind of took off. Had some big hits in the playoffs. So we've got Ken Griffey Jr.'s MLB debut, and then we've got Edgar Martinez towards the beginning of his career. And then Omar Vizquel. Wow, is this his Major League debut as well? This was before he was with Cleveland, yeah. Look at that. That's our game right there, April 3rd, 1989. He went 0 for 3 in this game. What did he do in his rookie year? Man, Vizquel was one of the best, like, in terms of just sheer hands. He was so good with his hands. Incredible defensive shortstop. Yeah, look at these D-WAR numbers. If you're up over 2 in defensive WAR in any year, that's ridiculous. See how many errors he made, if it'll tell me here. Fielding, that's what I want. Anytime you have a shortstop, they're going to have a fair amount of errors. I would argue it's the hardest position to play in the infield, and it's the hardest position to play in the infield, and then maybe it's just a very close second behind being a catcher. But the difference with being a shortstop as opposed to like a second baseman is the throw is longer, you have more responsibility, so there's more opportunities to make some errors. But even still, wow, look at this 92 season. 7 errors in 633 chances. So 633 times he touched the baseball, only 7 times he made an error. That's the best fielding percentage. Wow. Look at that. A lot of double plays turned. And this was, again, towards the beginning of his career. This was before he was really, with Cleveland. He won a Gold Glove here at the end of his Mariners career. And then look at this. Gold Gloves all the way down here. And then even when he's 38 with the Giants, he's still winning Gold Gloves. That's super cool. Must have been an amateur free agent. Let me see what the transactions look like. Oh, he's an all-time leader in... Yeah, look at that. All-time leader in games played at shortstop. All-time leader in double plays turned. And there, look at that. All-time leader in fielding percentage. That is awesome. If you want to emulate any shortstop, Omar Vizquel is your guy. 100%. He made $68,000 this year. Where did our transactions go? There it is. Amateur free agent in 84, so he was signed 84, so he was only like 17 years old when he was signed. Was traded to Cleveland. Let's look at this return. This is a little bit of history. So Felix Fermin, no idea who he is. And again, this is kind of looking back towards the really bad moves that the Mariners made. They probably could have been very good if they held on to some of these players. Reggie Jefferson, really did not pan out in Cleveland. Yeah. So this was an absolute fleece on behalf of the Indians at that time, because this is a Hall of Famer right here, Omar Vizquel. So this lineup, Omar Vizquel's not in the Hall of Fame. How is that the case? 11-time Gold Glover, not in the Hall of Fame. He held his own at the plate, too. That's crazy. A lot of sacrifices. He has value as a hitter. Obviously not a lot, but when you're playing this type of Gold Glove shortstop, like the best defensive shortstop that you could probably ever, identify, that how is he not in the Hall of Fame? That's wild. And he played for 24 years. He was still playing at 45 years old. So in this game, 0 for 3. 0 for 3. Did he strike out? No, he didn't strike out. Put the ball in play, saw 11 pitches. Huh, interesting. Talked about Mark Langston a little bit in the Randy Johnson trade. This is one of the trades that, you look at, and the Expos did get this one wrong. This was a bad trade. Traded by the Mariners. Mike Campbell. He did not amount to much, if I remember. Yes, that is heartily correct. Yeah, the Expos, they dropped the ball with this one, because Randy Johnson, one of the best pitchers of all time. 5-time Cy Young Award winner. Yeah, that Mark Langston trade was not great. And then if you look, let's see what his numbers were after leaving Seattle. Oh, that's right. He didn't even stay there. That's so funny. The Expos traded away Randy Johnson for half a season. It was a little more than half a season of Mark Langston. And he turned it around. I guess, he never really regressed necessarily. Look at this. He had a great season at the end of this year. He was pitching fine. Maybe not ace material type stuff. That's fine. That's good stuff, but he definitely turned it on once he got to Montreal. But yeah, that's one of the trades that you kind of look at and you're like, oh boy, that's not great. Let's check the A's here. Tony Phillips. Wow, big WAR right there. 2,000 career hits. 18-year playing career. 89 was his last year with Oakland, and then he ended up with Detroit. Look at these numbers. Utility guy. Did he ever play catcher? Doesn't look like it. This seems like a Hall of Very Good type of guy, Tony Phillips. Let's see how he made it to Detroit. Traded by the Padres, couple minor league players. So he was a free agent after this year. He was traded to Oakland. Oh, wow. So he was released in 87, and then he signed just a couple of months after that. That's crazy. Granted free agency, and then signed with the Tigers just shortly after that. Trying to see if there's any other names I recognize here. I'm not as well versed in the 90s and 80s of baseball as I am in the 2000s. First round pick, secondary phase, okay. So Tony Phillips, okay, you can look at that and be like, okay, that's a pretty darn good player. Dave Henderson. So he was on the other side of this coin, was with Seattle for a little while. See how he got there. Big trade with the Red Sox. Couple players to be named later. I'm not seeing any other recognizable names necessarily. Carney Lansford. Corner infielder, 2,000 career hits. Anytime you see 2,000 career hits, I think you might not realize how selective of a list that is. Because when Andrew McCutchen got his 2,000th hit, they said that he was one of just like barely over 200, I think, if that's what my memory allows me. And you realize that getting to 2,000 hits is pretty darn hard. This guy was a 290 hitter. 1,000 career runs. Led the league in batting average in 81. So this was towards the end part of his career. It was an all-star the year before in 88. Not a lot of power this year, but I mean, look at that. 336, almost a 400 OPS. Didn't slug for much, but again, you look at that and say this is a guy that was going to get on base. More walks than strikeouts this year. Not necessarily that way the entirety of his career. Actually, it looks like this number is kind of the inflator. 115 strikeouts and 79 with the California Angels. So, good player there, too. Mark McGwire, not a Hall of Famer, but for reasons that are fairly obvious, I feel like. This was kind of the middle of his all-star campaign. He was a Rookie of the Year in 87. 33 home runs this year. Not a great batting average. Kind of the first year that he didn't hit. I mean, maybe, I want to say league average, batting average was probably around this, like, 260 mark in the 80s. 33 home runs, 95 RBIs. Yeah, look at this. Steroid era, yes, but you can't deny the fact that he was hitting some bombs. 70, 65 in the span of 2 years. And that was when he was going for these records. Who the heck did... Oh, I don't want to do that. I guess that's like... Oops. No, I don't want to do that. Come back. Come back here. So who the heck did he finish behind? Was this Sammy Sosa? Did he finish behind MVP voting in this year? Yeah, it was. Sosa had him slightly in RBIs, not in home runs. Had him slightly in runs. Wow. I don't know. That's interesting. I think Mark McGwire should have won MVP this year. Batting average is very minimal. On base, look at this on base percentage. 470 on base percentage. I don't know how the heck. Wow. So Sammy Sosa won the MVP in 98. And yes, the two of them were jarring back and forth. This was the home run race. But I think Mark McGwire has him there. Don't you think? This 96 season was also pretty good. So McGwire never won an MVP. He won plenty of Silver Sluggers here. Won a Gold Glove in 90. I didn't know that. That's a good little tidbit. So Mark McGwire's a Gold Glove winner. You can use that one. Terry Steinbach. Who's this guy? Catcher, first baseman, long time with Oakland, a little bit of time with Minnesota towards the end. He was an all-star this year. Good season. Looks like below average hitting-wise, but let's check his defensive metrics. I think I went too far. Did I go too far? Oh, there we go. Oh. He was a negative defender this year. How did he make the All-Star game? That's interesting. Huh. This was definitely not one of his better years, it looks like, too. Maybe it's just a little bit of bias. Oh, look at this. So he's a super utility guy. Catcher, corner infield, outfield. Just did not play any middle infield, it looks like. But still, that's a very valuable type of player. Good career, 162 home runs. 9th round draft pick out of Minnesota. Let's go back to Dave Parker, the Cobra. Pirates legend, just recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. Do they have that updated? Yes, good. They have the Hall of Fame thing. Okay, so here are the numbers that I want to show you. So I love WAR. I think it's a good stat because it encapsulates all aspects of baseball. It takes into account your hitting. It takes into account your fielding as well. And you can separate the two of them like I've displayed here in this episode, but look at this. A career 290 hitter over the course of almost 10,000 at-bats, getting close to that 300 hit mark, and hit for a lot of power as well. A career 810 OPS. That's a Hall of Famer. Look at these years with Pittsburgh. 7.4, 7, 6.7. Like this year alone, the year he won MVP in 78, that is something that it's just undeniable that this guy should be in the Hall of Fame. And even towards the end of his career, look, I mean, he made a All-Star game with Milwaukee. Again, that might have, oh, he did win a Silver Slugger too. Yeah, look at these numbers. 25, 21, 30, 25, 34 at the age of 34. I mean, he aged like fine wine. He had a very nice career. World Series winner in 79. Must have won one with the Reds as well, I'm thinking. I'm not sure when they won the World Series. I'm not super good with the 80s World Series winners necessarily. I know 79, being a Pirates fan, it's kind of the only thing I can hang on to, even though that was just about 50 years ago. Yeah, Dave Parker, glad that he's back in the, well, not back in the Hall of Fame, but in the Hall of Fame. Long time coming, should have been. Glenn Hubbard, I've seen this name before. Yes, Germany. He's German, I remember that. One of the few players in baseball history that was born in Germany. Not a lot. 22 pitchers, 45 hitters. Let's see when the most recent one was. Hubbard, fairly recent, and one of the longest standing German players. Most of his time with Atlanta. So yeah, this was the last year of his career, 89. Just a solid second base guy. Never really hit super well. Actually, perennially below league average. Let's see what his defensive metrics are. Pretty good. Those are decent numbers. He's a good defensive second baseman. Stan Javier. Oh, journeyman. Second full year of his career here in 89. Pretty mediocre year, to be honest. What is this? What did he win? Oh, World Series winner. Oh, so this was the World Series year. 89. Who did they beat? It was the Dodgers. Is that right? Where am I going? Where am I going? No, that's not what I want. 1989 World Series. Let's just go up here and see what it says. Was this the Dodgers? Yeah, it was. No. I gotta scroll down. Alright, 89 World Series. The Giants. Okay, this was the Battle of the Bay. The sweep. Oh, yes, that's right. Dave Stewart won the World Series MVP this year. Okay. And then I guess is Ricky Henderson. He was on this team, but he didn't play in this game. Was he hurt, maybe? Because he was on this roster. Yeah, Ricky Henderson was there. Oh, yeah, he must have been hurt. Only 85 games this year. So he was in the primary left fielder. So who was the one to replace him then? I guess that would have been kind of a platoon with Tony Phillips and Stan Javier. And Walt Weiss at shortstop. Looked like he split time. Then this was coming off of his Rookie of the Year campaign. That's a weird Rookie of the Year. Let's see who he finished ahead of. See if there's any big names. Walt Weiss. I don't see any names that I'm super familiar with there. Maybe just a kind of an off year in terms of rookies, but several different teams here. Dave Stewart, we went and saw Gene Nelson. Really good bullpen for Oakland this year. That was kind of their bread and butter. 89, that's a good year. 80 innings pitched. 3.26 ERA, that's pretty good. Rick Honeycutt. Wait. Is he a manager? Am I remember that correct? Let's see what the overview says on him. Did he manage? Rick Honeycutt. That name sounds familiar. What do I know that from? I want to. Okay, we're back. Looks like my thing cut out because I ran out of space on my computer, so I threw everything on my little hard drive here, so we should be fine now. So Rick Honeycutt, he was a pitching coach, and I believe he still is the pitching coach of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Pitched with the Dodgers for a couple of years. This was 90 or 89. That was towards kind of the middle to end of his career. 21 years in the league. Mostly, it looks like, well, okay, so he kind of did the same thing that Eckersley did. He started out as a starter, and then he finished out as a reliever. He had 12 saves this year. That's cool. So he was kind of the other back-end reliever with Eckersley this year, it seems like. So that's pretty cool. And we already saw what Eckersley did. A lot of incredible stuff as a reliever. To win Cy Young, not only to win Cy Young as a reliever, but to win MVP as a reliever, that's crazy. That would never happen in this day and age. So Langston had that's a great game. That's a quality start. 3 earned runs over 8 innings. Gave up the 1 home run. That was to Mark McGwire. Okay. McGwire had a sac fly early on. So a 2-run homer made it 3-0 in the third. Edgar Martinez, an RBI single with 2 outs. That's a little bit of clutch hitting there. And then a Darnell Coles single off of Dave Stewart. So this was an unearned run on Stewart. So it must have been an error. Let's see what that error was. So an E4 on, who would that have been? Error on A's Glenn Hubbard. So, that's funny. So we were just talking about how Hubbard was solid defensively, so he didn't really do much there. And then what else did he do in this game? Did he 0 for 3, no strikeouts. The only person that struck out on the A's side was Stan Javier. He had a hit in the game too. So Mark McGwire 2 for 3, drove in all 3 runs. Griffey had his first career hit. It was a double. When did that come? Was that early on? Yeah, welcome to the big leagues. A double off of Dave Stewart on the second pitch that he saw in the major leagues at 19 years old. Splitting the gap the other way. That sweet swing, that sweet left-handed swing of his. Yeah, that's awesome. And then Dennis Eckersley comes in, throws 9 pitches, 1, 2, 3, top of the 9th inning, shut him down. Look at that. That's our box score. That's our little game rundown. And then look at the Mariners. Let's see how they finish this year. Oh, not good. 73 and 89, 6th in the West. I'm not familiar with this manager, Jim Lefevre. This was his first year managing. 1 year where he managed over 500. That was, or 2 years, I guess. 91 with the Mariners, 93 with the Cubs. I mean, pretty much just hovering around that mark. He was involved in a tie, too. That's funny. Jay Buhner, he was a pretty good player on those Mariners teams that were fairly successful. Not much going for the Mariners in 1989, and then I think the A's, yeah, they won the World Series this year. This was the Battle of the Bay. Swept the Giants. Yeah, I was going to say, Ricky Henderson should have been on this team, but it looks like he was hurt because he only played 85 games this year. Still had a great year. 52 stolen bases. So Ricky must not have been available at the beginning of the year, which is why we didn't see him in that opening day lineup. Jose Canseco was on this team too. That's another little good bit. He only played 65 games. Was this? Yeah, he was 24, so this was towards the beginning of his career. Well, he had okay, so he was an all-star this year. He won MVP the year before. Okay. So I wonder why he wasn't starting opening day. Oh, another similar thing. He was hurt. So this team that won the World Series was without the reigning MVP, Jose Canseco, and one of the best players of all time in Ricky Henderson for over half of the season, and they still managed to go on and win the World Series this year. Dave Stewart was the World Series MVP. Rickey Henderson won the ALCS MVP. Shutout in Game 1, 1 run in Game 2, blowouts. It's a tighter win in Game 4, but that's a sweep. It's a sweep nonetheless. Let's see what the championship series looked like. 1 Game 1, 1 Game 2. Blue Jays won Game 3 at home. Ooh, that's a tight one right there. And then, ooh, a couple tight ones in Games 4 and 5. Dave Stewart won twice. Wow, Dave Stewart was just dominant this year. Let's look at his playoff numbers. Where did they go? I saw them just a second ago. Advanced pitching, postseason pitching. There we go. So we got 89. ALCS. Wow. 16 innings pitched in 2 games. That's 8 innings a game. Only gave up 5 earned runs. Gave up 3 home runs. Okay, that's a little bit weird. So he was pitching to contact. And then in the World Series, he pitched 2 games. Same type of deal. Had a complete game shutout. Only gave up 3 runs. He would give up the home run, it looks like. What was that? What did that number look like over the course of his career? Yeah, he gave up a bunch of home runs. That's intriguing. I mean, he was obviously a big strikeout guy. He had 205 strikeouts, and then was kind of hovering around that mark for a long time. His Ks per 9 are good. They're not, like, amazing, though, I guess. But look at these numbers. I mean, he was a workhorse. 261 innings, led the league twice, 89 and 90 to flank this, or 88 and 90 to flank his 89 year. Yeah, look at all these hits. He pitched to contact. I guess I didn't realize that about him. He was intimidating, but guys could at least touch the ball off of him. So that's interesting. Look at how many batters he faced these 3 years. And this A's team, they went to the World Series, I think, in 3 straight years, and this 89 year was the only one that they won. '88. Yeah, they lost to the Dodgers. This was the Kirk Gibson year. Pretty much should have won Game 1. That's one of my favorite clips of all time. Obviously, it's very iconic, but one of the little smaller details in that clip is you can see the brake lights of the people leaving Dodger Stadium because they left early. They thought the game was over, which makes no sense because the game was close pretty much the whole game. And there were people leaving the stadium, and you can see the brake lights start to flash when the home run goes up because obviously Vin Scully, with that incredible, iconic call, they're probably listening on the radio in denial that they were going to lose Game 1. And here they are. They're just about to get out of the parking lot trying to, get away from this LA traffic. And then they hear Vin Scully's iconic Kirk Gibson call. And they're driving away. They missed it. That's one of my favorite clips of all time, and that little detail is one of my favorite little details about that clip. So, and then this year in '90 they lost. They got swept by the Reds. So they were either all or nothing, it looks like. They swept them in this year. They swept the Giants in the Battle of the Bay. They lost just 1 game. Or they only won 1 game against the Dodgers the year prior, and then they got swept by the Big Red Machine in '90. I mean, it makes sense with this roster. You look at just... Oh, I'm probably going to have to back-click a couple of times here. But when you look at the roster... Actually, I can just do this. Actually, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah, there we go. When you look at this roster and you kind of look up and down, you see guys like Tony Phillips, Carney Lansford, again, guys that really didn't get all the publicity of, the extent that guys like Dave Parker or Mark McGwire did, even guys like Dave Stewart, Dennis Eckersley, and, retrospectively looking back at Rick Honeycutt. This was a really well put together team. It makes a lot of sense why this team was well over 90 games and won 100 games twice in a 3-game stretch or a 3-year stretch. And we have some all-time greats on this roster for the Mariners too. Ken Griffey Jr., I think Alvin Davis again as a Rookie of the Year. Edgar Martinez is a Hall of Famer. Omar Vizquel should be a Hall of Famer. Mark Langston, also a very good pitcher. So this game featured a lot of star power in this opening day matchup. A 3-2 victory for the A's at home over the Mariners. Just a 2:19 game duration. Night game, 46,000. That's the beauty of the Coliseum right there. Cool stuff. Well, this was a really nice opening episode. You're not going to get a lot of this in terms of just the random aspect of it. When you type random into the search bar, you don't know what you're going to get. You could get a guy that maybe played one game and you've never heard of him. There are guys that, now that the Negro Leagues have been integrated into the Baseball Reference archives, you can type that in, and you can type in a guy just with the last name Smith, and let's see if it'll come up. There might be several guys with Smith. I might have just broke my computer because it's trying to think too hard. But if you do that, then, oh, yep, it timed out. That's funny. But like, there are guys that just played one game in their career and there isn't much to talk about. You look at it, you have no idea who they are. They don't have a picture. They don't even have a birth date for most of these guys. So it is really incredible that we got a very historic game because it was the debut for Ken Griffey Jr. and Omar Vizquel. It was the first game of the Athletics World Series winning year, a year where they're coming off a heartbreaking loss to the Dodgers in the 1988 World Series. This was a great game. I don't think you could ask for much better of a game to start off with. So, as always, well, not as always, this is the first time we're doing it, but as always from now here on, thanks for listening and thanks for watching, and we'll be doing this a little bit more, I feel like. This is fun. I love diving deep into Baseball Reference because you learn so much. You learn about the names of guys that were maybe overlooked by other players, and you get to see the depths of baseball lore, which is just super cool. So, thanks for listening. I'm Zany Baseball. My real name is Zane Bloom. I'm a broadcaster for the Lake Erie Crushers. I just love baseball history, and I spend a lot of time on Baseball Reference. So, if you enjoyed listening and watching, leave a like. And, hey, maybe let me know of some other players, or if there's some games that you want me to look at and do some deep dives into, I'll be open to do that. But I think I love randomness. I love being able to look at something just completely off the cuff and saying, all right, let's dive in and let's learn something. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.